And you never got into any scandal with sex videos or anything like that? You avoided all that shit?
Not yet.
Not yet. But there's still time, isn't there?
Huh?
You talk about weird stories. So you're a young girl. It becomes apparent that you're very good looking, and your friends did a trick on you.
Yeah, well, frenemies, right? They have a word for that now.
You're in, what?
Is this in school?
Was this in high school, would you say? How old were you at this point?
16.
16.
I could drive, yeah, so.
You get a call from a local department store. They say, hey, Cindy, you're a beautiful girl. We'd love for you to come to the department store and model. And this is a great break for a girl. Where were you living? You were living
DeKalb,
in
Illinois, yeah.
In Illinois. And it's exciting. That's how you get into the modeling
Well,
business.
and it was out of nowhere. So I was like, wow, like someone must have noticed me walking down Main Street, you know.
And you probably went to your parents and said, hey, I'm going down to the local department store. They've asked me to model. And you're excited and your hopes and dreams are coming true. And you get to the store, and the store, I guess you walk into the store and you say, so I'm here to model. And they look at you like you're crazy.
Yep.
And it turned out your friends pulled a prank on you. Your so-called friends pulled a prank on you. They called your house, pretended to be the department store. That had to hurt.
Oh, I can still remember that feeling of just first of all, I ran out of that store as quick as I could because I just was mortified. And then I saw these two girls like half a block away standing on the corners laughing. And it was so mean. It did hurt. It hurt a lot. But later, I've been able to tap into that, you know, like, I guess I showed them, you know.
Well, you said every time you went on a modeling job, and the bigger the modeling jobs got, you think of those two girls doing that prank on you. What is that? Does that relax you in a way, or does it say, fuck you, I'm going to be the greatest model, I'm going to make the most money out of any model?
It says F you.
It does?
Yeah. And I saw them at my 10-year high school reunion, too.
Do they walk up and suck up to you incredibly because you're now the famous Cindy Crawford? Is there a change?
Or they just know to stay away.
You know, it's like, what do they say? Success is the greatest revenge, right? I don't have to say anything.
You know, I think about your life, and you were married at an early age to a guy, Gilles Ben-Simon. He's a famous fashion photographer.
Right.
And the story goes that you didn't speak a word of French, but in 6 months you learned French fluently.
I
Is that
was
true?
very much in love, yeah.
Are you a genius? You tested in the top percentile of SAT, whatever the equivalent of the Australian SAT.
I was in the top 3% of the country in my final studies, and I went to, I applied to university to study law. That's what I wanted to do, like my stepfather was a lawyer.
Why didn't you go into law? Because you were so beautiful?
No, not at all. I took a gap year because I was young. I finished school, I was 16 in 9 months, and I was going to go and study law at 17.
How do you finish school at 16? How does that happen?
16 and 9 months. That's the way the system is in Australia.
I see. So you took the SAT.
I took my final exams. I did quite well because I studied hard, not because I'm particularly bright.
Right.
And I got into university, and then I took a gap year, and during that gap year, I started modeling.
How old were you then? 16?
17.
Did your mother?
How did she become a model then? I mean, most people are discovered somehow.
No, I wasn't discovered. A girlfriend of mine, said to me, "I've started this modeling thing. You can earn quite a lot of money." I thought, I like the idea of that. She said, I bet you $20 if you go to my modeling agency, they'll take you on. I thought, even if I lose, I win $20. $20 was a lot of time a lot of money at that age for me. And it was at least 3 hours work at the pharmacy I was working at.
Right.
And so I went along to this modeling agency, and they took me on, and then I started working.
You were always known as the body.
Right.
That was your thing, the body.
No, actually, to tell you the truth, with that was that when Time coined the body, I thought to myself, hey, very smart. How can I capitalize on this?
Right.
And that's when I started to build a brand around body products, the body consciousness, body wellness. And so it's not really an ego place like, oh, wow, look at me, don't I have a great body? It was more a business decision that I made in 1986.
Boy, you look good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you look. I could see why you modeled professionally, made a fortune.
Well, how old were you when you started modeling? You started young.
I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
Now,
15.
Where did you grow up?
L.A.
And when you're in L.A., your mother just looked at you and knew right away you were that good looking and said, I'm going to put you in modeling?
My mother looked at me and had no idea that I was a model. My mom was a medical photographer, and part-time she would take pictures of women that wanted to model.
Right.
And I would hold the bounce card and check her lighting for her as her little 12-year-old assistant.
So how do you get into modeling at 15?
A girl came up to me on the first day of school and was like, you look like a model. And I was like, what? She was the first person to ever tell me that.
How does one go about becoming a model? I don't understand how you make that jump.
Well, I waited. She discovered me when I was 13. I waited until the 11th grade when I was 15.
Right.
And I went to a bunch of agencies and...
You walked around with a picture of yourself?
I walked around with some snapshots that my mom took of me.
So you must have known you were good looking, and boys must have started paying attention
Boys
to you.
still were not paying attention. You have to understand that model does not necessarily mean beautiful, alluring, or
but you're a
attractive
beautiful
to
woman.
a boy. When I was younger, I was more of a high fashion model look. So it was a little more quirky, more odd, more interesting.
And being a black woman, I remember when you started modeling, it was not really that common for a black woman to be a model. And maybe there's only one black model that's allowed to be successful.
Exactly. I walked into the agencies and a lot of them were like, oh, we already have a black model. Sorry.
So it's almost impossible. So if someone would have said to you that you would have made a fortune as a model, you would have laughed, because at that time it would have been questionable whether you could even get work.
Yeah, I would have laughed.
So you walk in.
I walk in to the one that said yes.
Who is that?
LA Models.
And are you grateful to them because they didn't say we have already one black model?
I'm super grateful. I'm probably sitting in front of you now because of them. Although they did tell me I wasn't photogenic, but that I should do runway. So I started off with runway with them.
How do you learn how to do that walk on the runway? What is that all about?
I studied, and I've seen documentaries and stuff on you and how you studied and like really were obsessed.
You studied what the women did.
I studied. I went to the fashion library in Los Angeles and like was obsessed with tape, and I'd watch tape of girls from the 80s and just really like study them, 70s too.
There is something to study about why some people break out and some don't.
Yes.
So what was the secret, that you somehow are more interesting?
I think the secret for me was a lot of research. So like when I went to Paris for the very first time, instead of going to college, I went to Paris. I got accepted at every college I applied to. I wanted to be a writer. Yes, I wanted to be a writer and a producer for film and television.
You didn't go to college?
No, I didn't. I got accepted to all of them, but I got discovered to go to Paris at the last 2 weeks before my first day of college. I got discovered to go to Paris.
And you said, screw college. I can make a fortune doing this modeling.
No, I said, oh my God, this is the craziest decision of my life. What am I going to do? I don't know what to do. I talked to my mom. My mom said, follow your heart. I support you and whatever.
What could a girl make? Walking the runways of Europe, how much can you make a day doing that?
Well, back in my day, some of the top girls are making $10,000 a fashion show.
Wow.
And so you do 5 a day. You do about 25 per city. So add up Milan, Paris, New York, and then maybe a little bit of London.
So you could pull in 50 G's a day?
Yeah, you could.
Oh my God, you must have been going berserk.
Yeah, I was doing pretty well.
To me, this is one of the coolest things I've ever read. So here you are at the height of the scene, and you befriend a fellow model, Patty Hansen, who is dating Keith Richards.
The best.
And so you say, this sounds so exciting to me, because to me, Keith Richards is one of the greatest.
The coolest ever.
Like the coolest guy, right?
Not only more cool than you really even know.
And so you're hanging out with the Stones, and Keith Richards, you describe a scene where you're on an airplane. And Keith is turning to you and saying, hey, I just wrote a song. Tell me what you think of it. Right. You must have been hearing songs like, Ruby Tuesday or Sympathy for the Devil, because he was coming up with riffs left and right at that point, right?
He was amazing. Actually, we were on the Concorde together. And then when we got in the limousine.
Gives me the chills.
Yeah, he put on, before it was like up top there or whatever it is. And, I'm listening and he's going, you got ears, listen to this and that and other. It was just so cool. And he was he is so talented and such a great writer and everything, and just to see them in love. And I remember Patty, we went down to the bathroom afterwards and she says, Beverly, this is the one. I'm like, what do you mean this is the one? We're just hanging out with the guy. She said, no, I'm going to get married and I'm going to have children with him. And I'm like, whoa.
Let's slow down, honey.
Slow up now.
You're losing oxygen.
We're having fun here, but don't, But and they did, and it's wonderful.
But Beverly, isn't it the most intoxicating to be hanging out with a rock star who's sitting there creating some of the world's greatest music?
I cannot tell you.
Was it great stuff? Like, were you listening? And were you, in a way, it's the greatest seduction for a man to seduce a woman, isn't it?
Well, I've been around it because remember, one of the husbands. got reggae music to America. And so I was around Bob Marley and everything. And I've kind of been around a lot of musicians and all of that. And so
What was Marley like?
Unbelievable.
What is unbelievable about Marley?
Unbelievable. First of all, he was so handsome and hot.
Good-looking dude.
And just very, oh my God. Now that's one I regret not. Well, anyway. Why
didn't you sleep with him?
I don't know.
What were you thinking?
It was just too much for me. It was just.
He blew your mind.
Yeah, he really did. And just, his energy and what he was talking about and his songwriting and, and all of that.
And the pot thing was so much of his culture. Like, was he constantly stoned and smoking?
Constantly.
And did he have the best weed?
Yeah, man. He was just like, he was just the coolest of the cool,
And these guys can have anything they want, right?
Anything they want.
And you're probably aware of that, too. In a way, it's a game, too. You're like, you know what? I'm just not going to give it up so easy for some of these guys because they can have anybody, and they're just going to go on to the next one and the next one and the next one.
I just like to appreciate them for, what they are, what they have to offer. It's not really like a relationship thing for me.
I can't get off this plane with Keith Richards. So when he's sitting there, do you remember any one song where he turned to you and said, "Hey, what do you think of this riff?" And then it was like, I don't know, Satisfaction or something. Do you remember any particular one?
No, I don't, but I do remember he did a solo album at the time.
That was the Expensive Winos, right?
Yeah. It was really
I dig
cool.
that album, actually.
He's really, really, really talented. Really cool guy.
Do you think he was playing those songs for you, showing off and knowing he was no, you think it was just like, hey, he was really
Patty
curious.
Was right there. No, he was really curious because he knew I had been around, a lot of people in the music industry, and also I'm black and I'm cool.
Right.
And he knew I had ears. I think they can sense whether somebody is cool and they have ears and whatever. And I did. I do have ears.
Is being cool hard? In other words, I was never a cool guy. I don't know how to be cool. I don't know how to be comfortable in a crowd. I don't know how to hang. What does it mean to be cool?
How do you do all that?
Well, I think that you don't say very much. And
that's the secret.
No,
you have hit it. Yeah. I talk too fucking much. I could never be cool.
You have to be like an observer. It's almost like Andy Warhol. He never spoke. It was so weird. I mean, he even called me up one day, and he didn't say anything.
And didn't say anything.
I mean,
that's the coolest move.
I mean, really.
Let me understand something. You were very careful in your career.
Yes.
In Sports Illustrated, of course, you wore bikinis and stuff like that. You were the only one, I think, on 3 covers or something crazy like that. But you were asked by Playboy to be in Playboy. You did not go naked. You appeared on the cover, but you were not nude. You also, in National Lampoon's Vacation, your character was supposed to be topless. You refused, right? Mm-hmm. You stayed in your bra and panties in that swimming scene. Is that it? So you have never done nudity. Am I correct?
Correct.
Like Cindy Crawford was in here, and she had done nudity. Like she did tasteful nudes.
Yes.
That was by design, though. You did not want to show off your assets that way.
Not
No,
even in
because, you know what?
fashion magazines, nothing like that.
Tasteful
No,
nudes.
I mean, I did. I was nude on the set, but with nothing showing, kind of thing.
Right.
Do you regret that? Because when you're in the prime modeling years, you would have had those pictures forever, like, sort of frozen in time.
Well, that's the thing. And so would my kids. And I always, my number one thing in life, I knew I wanted to be a mom.
Right.
I love the idea of a big, happy family, and that was my goal. And I thought, do I want the kids to have to be there on the playground with kids going, "Here's your mom,"
Right.
Right.
You have none of those issues with the kids because you don't have those pictures floating around.
Yeah.
And you never got into any scandal with sex videos or anything like that. You avoided all that shit.
Not yet.
Not yet. But there's still time, isn't there?
Huh?